So hope everyone able to create and use the components so without any issues. I hope all are clear with the practice. Right. So fine. So yesterday we discussed about how do we design a component and how do we work with a component by using the component inline technique. So the component inline technique. So this is the component inline technique process we have learned, right? So in this process, we designed everything in one file, everything in one file. So the generating of component, everything is done in one file. Now today we will see how to design component. So how do we design component using code behind technique? So code behind technique, right? How we can deal with code behind technique. So that means another method of working with the components. So adding configuring component using code behind technique. Using code behind technique. How we can handle the components using code behind technique, right? Actually, code behind technique, what is the key point about this code behind technique is, so in this technique, the code design, you can say presentation, and the styles are maintained in separate files, in separate files. So it is easy to extend and test. It is easy to extend and test. If you have regular extensions to make regular extensions to add into your functionality, then you can go with so code behind technique. So however, actually what happens is using multiple files will increase the load time will increase little bit, but we don't have any another chance, because if you want so the if you want the functionality to happen, so then obviously if you are concerned about the separation and testing, then obviously you need to maintain about in separate files. You need to compromise with this speed, how it is handling, right? So technically, one of the important thing you should know is we can design the components with clean separation. Let's see how we can manage this, how we can deal with that. So that means by using separation concerns, so we can create all our components. So let's see how to do that. So for designing a component, yesterday we designed one component, some home component. We designed this home component and only one file. In that file, we have all the design and the functionality, including closing that. In the app folder, if you want a separate component to maintain, then better, and every component have 3 files. Actually, testing file, we don't use this now. We will not use any testing file. We will not add any testing file. Actually, every component comes with these 4 files default. But when we are designing, we can use only the files that we need. And all components here are at one place. All component files are at one place. This leads to little bit confusion here. So what you do is better. In an app, you create a new folder. Let's name this folder as log. We are creating a new folder called login. And in this login folder, now as we need, we will add 3 files. That means first point here is create a new folder into app folder by name login, and add following files. You need 3 files into this. What are the files we need into that location? So we need the files. So login.component.ts, that is for code, and we need login.component.html, that is for presentation, and we need login.component.css, this is for effects. We have to add these 3 files. So component, ts, html, and css. So let's go to the login folder and add 3 files into it. Login.component.ts. Okay. And another file. So login.component.html. Okay. And another file. So here another file, login.component.css. These are the 3 files. That means for login component, now we have these 3 files defined. Better, all our components we will keep in a separate folder. So these are all the options in a new folder here. Okay. Technically here, so we are going through these options, and you can see we can design 3 files in a separate location. How? Your TypeScript file, go to the TypeScript file, login.ts. In login.ts, we need to define the component logic. So how we can do that? Let's see how we can configure. So we will see. First, yesterday we discussed the basic rules, how to give a component behavior. So we need to import from Angular core. We need to import from Angular core. So this component base. Okay. And after that, we need to create export class is login component. Okay. And here we need a decorator. So at component, this is a decorator. So it contains the metadata. And now important, first option is you need a selector. You need a selector. You need a selector. And the selector here we need to configure. So the selector as what's the selector is the selector we want for the component is some app hyphen login. Okay. Now important is template means HTML is not directly defined. HTML is coming from separate file because we have a separate file for this. Then we will go with template URL. Template URL. So you can go here and we can define from where it is coming. Template URL is expecting a string. So you have to define the name of that file. Actually, that login HTML file, the design should come from login HTML file. And the login HTML file is present in the same folder where this TS file is present. Otherwise, you have to use you have to use dot. So currently, we can directly give the name login dot component dot HTML. We can directly configure. Because it is in the same folder, we can just define the name. So login.component.html. It has to come from this location. Okay. Next important here is after this. Now another important point is from where styles are coming. So we have to define style URLs because this time our styles are coming from a separate style sheet. We need to define a separate style sheet here. We need to configure a separate style sheet here, right? So how do we define the style sheet? So style URLs is an array, because a single component can use multiple style sheets, different style sheets you can maintain for single component. You know that generally in a HTML, a page can get styles from more than one style sheet. It's not mandatory that it should be only one. All right? It can get from different. So multiple style sheets. You can get from multiple style sheets. So here, how you can manage that, how you can configure and manage that. So here we need to just put a quote. In the quote, it is a string URL, string array. Then I have to define it should come from login.component.css. We are configuring with login component CSS. So this is the basic design. These are the basic options to configure for the component. So once you configured, so this design the HTML. And it is in login HTML, login component HTML. What is the presentation you need? So I'm just using a div here, and we are configuring the component HTML here. So that means here we are designing a simple data list. Initially, we are using all our own styles we are configuring. Later, I will show you how you can use bootstrap styles. After that, in later stage, in the deep concepts when we are dealing with, we will use material styles, how we can work with them, component material styles. That means there are three options. You write your styles, you use bootstrap, or you use angular material styles to make the presentation more better. Because angular is used front end, so we don't not only expect a functionality, we need a proper good presentation from the front end also. We need to implement a lot of styles and effects in order to reach the client requirements. So you need to be little bit aware of using and working with different types of styles, especially bootstrap like things, right? So here I'm currently, so first we will see just how to manage general. I'm using a data list with a data term. So here, so username and data definition. So we have a text box, input type is equal to text, just a sample. Another data term, password, and here data definition, input type is equal to password. Just design we are creating. And here I am just keeping a button. So a button and say login. And important is I want this to have a header. So keep the header as, so in this header, I want the title to display, this title to display, which is present in our CSS. We want the title to display. So what we need to do, if we want the title to display, then go to component HTML. And in that component HTML, so we have to use that title. I already told you to bind the data. So we use a data binding expression, that is flower braces. And here I am just bringing that title here and display. Title and display. We are accessing the title and display. Okay. Now for this component, so we want some design. How we can apply the effects. So this is, I'm just using a class as some form group. This is a form, so login form. So form login. And I'm just adding a CSS class form login, and for that we need to add effect here. So that means class is used with the dot, form login is the class, and for this we are having some options. Width as some 300 pixel, and margin we set to auto. So and margin top we set to some align contents, yeah, text align. So align items to center, and justify content to center. So and here we are using some border, so 2 pixel solid and dark scene, okay, and box shadow, some 2 pixel and 3 pixel and dark scene, and we have border radius something. These are all I have defined here. So 10 pixel. Add your effects for the buttons and appearances here. So for example, I have button, and for the button we set some background color. So background color some dark cyan, okay, and color some white, right? This is the basic just sample design we have created. Fine. Now These all depends on your requirement of your styles and what knowledge you have for the styles. You can copy and define them. Now, once we configured these styles and effects, so you can, it is ready, component is ready. Component is ready with the TypeScript, the HTML and CSS maintained in separate files. So what we have done, we added the logic for this. So that is login dot component dot. So here, yeah, login dot component dot ts. So the code for this login component ts, and this is the code for login component ts, right? I'm just adding that code here. So that is the code for login component ts. This is the code for login component ts. Yeah. Now, yeah. So this is the basic for login component ts. Fine. Now, the same, we need to add the logic for HTML. That means login dot component dot HTML, and that is the code for HTML. This is the code for HTML. Just I'm copying that. This is all for our notes, right? And yeah, and one more is the code for login dot component dot CSS. The login component CSS, and this is the code for login component CSS. Okay, the next step is we need to, this is all the code. So for these three files, login component, so and HTML and for CSS, for all of these. Now this component need to be registered. So that is everyday work. So no need to give that in the note every time. After creating the component, you have to register your component. One ability of our Visual Studio is if you mention the component name, it is available in your project. It can automatically track its location and import it for you. So you don't need to import. See here, I'm adding here. So login component. I choose press tab or enter. So I press tab or enter. You can see it is imported for you. So it imports the login component for you. So it is easy for us to manage. But otherwise, you need to write the path, because generally how we write the path for this, because it is present in separate folder, we have to use the folder name in that the file name. You have to mention this. It will automatically add the component. After adding the component means registering the component, keep in the bootstrap with login component. Okay. And in the index page, now use this app login as the selector. This work is everyday work, so no need to give this every time in the notes after creating how to register, how to keep in the bootstrap. Now once run this and see, now your login component is ready. So let's access. That means I already compiled and I am running this in the background. I'm just using here. So just like localhost 4200, then it should start with our login component. And to make this better a little bit in the CSS, I'm adding here padding as some 30 pixels. Then save this, then it will add the distance for that. So a general basic design we have created. This is all our own CSS we are configuring, and we are configuring the component. We can make this more better and faster instead of writing so much CSS by implementing the concept of Bootstrap. You can use Bootstrap. If you can use Bootstrap, then you can make these presentations more better and faster. So, but how do we enable Bootstrap, configure Bootstrap? We will see. So because Bootstrap is a separate package, you need to download, install for your project and enable it so that you can start using the Bootstrap styles. Let's see that part. So instead of configuring the styles here, how we can manage this. So everything is working fine here. Okay. Now let's install Bootstrap for our applications so that I can reduce this effort of writing all these CSS by myself every time. So little bit we can write and majority we can implement from Bootstrap. Majority we can implement from Bootstrap. So especially while presentation. So how manage that? Let's see. That means configuring, installing and enabling Bootstrap. Installing and enabling Bootstrap. Enabling Bootstrap. Installing and enabling Bootstrap. So for we have to install and enable Bootstrap for Angular project. So for Angular project, let's see how we can do this. How we can install and enable for Angular project. Let's see. So Bootstrap, you know that one of the largest repository of CSS and JavaScript, and you can implement the Bootstrap. So, and you can configure the Bootstrap for your application. So let's see how we can manage. So Bootstrap and some icons and configurations, how do we do that? So let's see how do we set up the Bootstrap so that we can make the presentation better. Every day in our examples, I will use Bootstrap first few days. Later, we will learn about mat classes also, material classes. So initially, how do we enable Bootstrap for the project so that I can avoid all this logic and means styles and make it more simpler, right? So let's see. So what we can do now is for handling this, so for designing this, to install Bootstrap, open your terminal. Already in one terminal, our project is running. Already in one terminal project is running. So I will not terminate it because I need to, if I terminate, I need to start it again. So then I will add one more terminal. In a new terminal, go to your workspace location. In the workspace, you install Bootstrap. So install Bootstrap because it should be available for all the projects, right? So how do we install Bootstrap? npm install Bootstrap. We have to install Bootstrap. By default, Bootstrap is not enabled. You have to install Bootstrap. So npm install Bootstrap. Okay. It will download and install the latest version of Bootstrap available for your project. And when Bootstrap is installed, you know the library actually. So once Bootstrap is installed, so what you have to do is open terminal, open your workspace location in terminal, and type the following command. So and what you have to do is, so yeah, so npm install Bootstrap. You have to type this command. And once Bootstrap is downloaded, that means Bootstrap repository is copied into Bootstrap repository is copied into node modules. So into node modules, it is copied into node underscore modules. It is copied into node modules. And in node modules, so generally, what is the repository copied for you? So what is the hierarchy of that repository? I will show you. So in the node modules where actually it is present. So that means generally you have node modules. means the file system architecture I'm showing. Node modules. Okay. In the node modules, so we generally have bootstrap. So folder, you generally have a bootstrap folder. So in the node modules bootstrap folder, so let's see. Yeah. In the node modules bootstrap folder, so you will find and in the dist folder, so you will find here, so css. In the dist css, you have bootstrap.css. So this is the file that you need for styles. Actually, Bootstrap have JavaScript also, and Bootstrap jQuery file is also there. That Bootstrap jQuery file will be inside the JS folder. Currently, we don't need, so we can use just this Bootstrap CSS. We can avoid Bootstrap jQuery file, and we can use Material Designs to make it more better in performance. Initially CSS, our CSS file will be here. Okay. So you can see Bootstrap is installed. Currently stable version of Bootstrap is 4.5. The latest release of Bootstrap is 5. Bootstrap, we have 5 version, very recent version, but it is not yet into the stable release. So Bootstrap 4.5, some companies are still using Bootstrap 3 version. Now we will use this Bootstrap 4.5. Several projects are still using Bootstrap 3 on. Some changes are there in the Bootstrap options. Some changes are there. Okay, now we have this Bootstrap successfully installed. Okay, after successfully installed, so you will find the repository here. You can observe. So in the node modules, you can see we have a Bootstrap folder. Scroll here, you will find a Bootstrap folder. Yeah. So we have a Bootstrap folder here. In this Bootstrap, we have dist distribution in that CSS, in that bootstrap.css. This is the basic file that we need. Now important is after downloading this Bootstrap, and if it is available in the node modules, so directly in the node modules. So next step, what we have to do is, the next point here is, so make Bootstrap CSS as global for all components. Bootstrap CSS as global for all components, so that all components can use this Bootstrap CSS. Make Bootstrap CSS as global for all components. How you can do that? So that means how we can manage that. So how we can do that is for that. So you have to go to styles.css. You have to go to styles.css. Observe here in our Amazon project. You can see here. So we have styles.css in the src folder. I told you the hierarchy of the file structure. In src folder, you have styles.css. This is the location where we keep the global styles. And I showed you that here I added one style where you can use, this can be used for all of them. That's the reason in our login page for heading ready-made, some effect is added. For heading, some ready-made effect is added because it is coming from global. From the local, some styles are there. From the here, I haven't mentioned anything for heading. but heading is also having a design because it is coming from the style CSS. If I remove from the global location here, remove from the global location, that means now the heading style is not applied to that. Only that basic style is applied to this. Only the basic style is applied to this. So in styles.css, what we have to do is we need to import this bootstrap file. That means how do we import the CSS file? Here in style.css, you can use the command. So import. And here to deal with this import, so we need to import. So we have to use import, @import. So import is a keyword in a CSS. If you want to use a dynamic keyword, then all your dynamic code should start with @. That means we have to use an import decorator here dynamically. Okay, which file to import? So you have to configure that file path. Configure the file path. This is some important here. Already you know how to write the paths. On one occasion of linking our modules, I told you about the file paths. Here you need to configure the file paths. How to configure the file path? You can see currently we are in SRC folder and our bootstrap CSS is in node modules. That means we have to come out of SRC and go to Amazon. You have to come out of Amazon and go to projects. You have to come out of projects and go to node modules, because currently we are in SRC folder. Styles is in SRC folder and SRC is in Amazon. Amazon is in projects. That means a 3-level hierarchy is there. To come out of the current folder, /. Okay, it comes out of our SRC folder. It came out of SRC folder. You can see SRC folder is showing now. After that, // again. Now I came out of Amazon folder. It is showing Amazon folder. Again, // Now I came out of projects folder. So you can see projects folder is showing here. Now in this folder, in this folder, we have node modules now. In the node modules, we need bootstrap. In bootstrap dist CSS, in that bootstrap.css, we need to import that here. And semicolon. We need to use a line terminator semicolon. So this is what we have to write in style CSS. Once you write this in style CSS, that means you have to go to style CSS. And here we need to import bootstrap CSS. So you have to import the bootstrap CSS by using this command. We need to use this command for importing bootstrap CSS. We have to write this in the style CSS file. You have to import this. You need to write in this way. So now you can see here, once it is ready, that means bootstrap is ready. Then you can observe by default some changes happened in our document actually. The changes are nothing but, so you can observe here font styles are changed a little bit. I will do one thing now. Let's go to login.css. And here I will clean up all this CSS. I will clean up all this CSS. Okay. That means we don't have all the CSS here. So just a simple empty. And you can see in the design, it is empty. But you can see that still some fonts are working. Indentation is working. Space is working. That means Bootstrap is working on it, because Bootstrap some have base effects. Those base effects are being applied on this. Now let's go to our login HTML. And once we know that Bootstrap is working fine, Bootstrap is working, then we will not design in this way. Our all presentation will be according to the Bootstrap. then it makes a good presentation. Then we will not use all these data terms and definitions and all. So how we will design this time? See, we will use a div, and in this div we need to keep all our information. For this we have to use a class, and the class I am using a container fluid. This is a CSS class. It is a ready-made CSS class provided from the Bootstrap. So I am using that container, and all my Bootstrap effects I am using. Bootstrap style I am following. I am using a class. So a class as form group. Okay. And I will keep here a header. So this header is having the data coming from, so title, from the title it is coming. And for this we will use a class as text center. It will apply center. Text primary, it will give some effect. Color. And here for form group, here we are using a label. In the label you are giving username, and after that a div. In this div we have a text box. Input type is equal to text, and here we are having a class called form control, because text boxes and all are given with form control. Okay, now I am defining another here div, and this is another form group, and here we are having a label. This is for password. That is how we design our presentation, especially if we have a Bootstrap working. Then we use input type is equal to text, and class is equal to form control. So control. Input type, I will give some password here. So, and form control. And after the second form group, so this is another form group. Third form group is for a button. So we will put a class form group, and here we will use a button. And usually button term is login, and button is having class btn primary, and here btn block. These are the effects I given for the button. And you can see that with all these effects, now our login screen looks in this way. Now what we can do here is, now you can add some additional effect. So already there is a container fluid. So what I do here is I'm just defining, so dot container fluid. So this is already a CSS coming from Bootstrap. You can override them. You can extend them. You can add some functionality. Here, width I defined as some 300 pixels, and padding I defined as some 30 pixels, and justify content I given as center. Align items also I defined as center. Centered. And so here margin I defined as auto. So margin as auto. So auto. And you can see that now we are overriding this container fluid already, which is there. We are adding some more here. And now it gets us this presentation. That means we have user login, and it is justifying the content into the center here. So now this is the text box, this is the password, and this is the login. That means we are simply using the predefined CSS. And a lot of CSS that usually you need to write will be reduced. You have to just use these Bootstrap classes. 100 to 100% in Angular development. So presentation also plays the key role. So you need to be good in your CSS and Bootstrap and all for creating presentation, because sometimes when you are attending interviews on Angular, once you cleared your test of first level, second level, then finally they give you some system testing where they will give you some screenshots of presentation, and they will give you a functionality saying that This is our URL. In this URL, we will have API data. You have to pull that data from that URL. And this is our presentation, what we need. You have to create that presentation and show. They will give you a task and they will say that with this data, create this presentation and send us that code. So you have to practically do that and implement. So that means they are very much confident because they say that after within 1-2 days you submit your task. They know that you will take help of Google, you will search online and you will try, but still they know that you have to do majority of work by yourself only. That is the reason. So presentation also plays a key role in Angular. So and you cannot become a simple Angular developer without handling this presentation. Logic apart, presentation also very important. So you should be first perfect in logic and all the implementation. Then you should concentrate on presentations. That makes better, right? So here, as reasonably in various occasions, we will use styles and effects so that we can implement this. So what the changes we have done now after implementing the Bootstrap. So after implementing the Bootstrap, now what changes we have done is, so now what we are doing here is, so go to time. So login.component.html. And because we know that our Bootstrap is working fine, that means we are using Bootstrap now. According to the Bootstrap, we changed this design. According to the Bootstrap, we changed this design. So because, so it is working, Bootstrap is working. And we are adding this design this time into the login screen. Into the login, we added a different design. So instead of using the traditional data list and data terms as we created here. Yeah. Second point, we made some changes in the CSS file. That means you have to go to, and one more option is login.component.css. In the CSS, so we are adding, so in the CSS, we are adding a simple, this is the only thing we have added. We just added some options which can override the contents and we can add these additional effects for that. This is the change we have done for our CSS. Now, once you know how we can manage this, then in everyday examples, we can use this. I will show you one more option, like how we can put icons, symbols, and options for our design so that in every example, we can implement them. Initially, so this is designing a component. So by using code behind technique, installing Bootstrap, configuring the Bootstrap, and using the Bootstrap for our presentations effectively. Then now we can see another important point is you can also generate components by using simple commands. You may ask, like, do I need to create a folder every time? Do I need to add the files manually every time? No, we have some commands. Generally, we have we have to learn creating Angular components, using Angular CLI commands. By using Angular CLI commands, you can design Angular CLI components. For that, we have ready-made commands. We can deal with them. So what are those commands? How do we work with these commands? We will see now. So we will handle with them now. So that we will see in our next session. So Monday, we will continue with this. And Monday, we will see one more option, how to use commands and generate the components. And Monday, we will go into very important topic, data binding. So, and implementing the framework like MVC, MVVM in our Angular, how this works, integration, we will discuss detailedly about this. So Monday, we will continue with that. Okay, thanks.